just setting up LinkedIn here. 2 minutes here.
Let's go, man. Wish Riverside would let you do like custom background stuff, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I think Restream might have more functionality for it, but cool. Good morning, everybody. Timo here with Basin. Got another edition of Gitcoin Climate, Gitcoin Alpha Round going live here. And welcome John Ellison from ReFi DAO.
What's going on, Timo? Great to see you, man. How are you?
Doing well, man. Yeah, it's a snowy day here, snowy morning here in Colorado, but we're in a nice little week-long snow pattern, which is good. So
beautiful. I'm jealous, man. Gonna be home soon before we know it.
Cool. Yeah, next month. Yeah,
yes,
next about a month, right? You'll be here in Denver.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to actually meet, man, in the flesh. I can give you a big old bear hug.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for stopping by. For those watching on LinkedIn or YouTube, you can drop comments in those two chats, or you can do it at basin.live, which is the Riverside studio. You can drop comments in. We're going to do John and ReFi DAO for about 30 minutes, and then we have Sage from ReSci Network on, and then we have Ignacio from Endangered Tokens on thereafter. So let's just go ahead and get going. John, it is Friday, and it is ReFi Friday, so it's actually one of the best things about these live programs we've been doing is, like Twitter Spaces, right? Is just like a PFP and a image and a voice, but like here you see people face to face, so it's fun. So cool. That's been one of the best parts about doing this. So here we are, ReFi Friday.
Man, loving it. Thanks for kicking off again. You were also, I think, the ReFi Friday catalyst last time. You're like, we got to do this every Friday. Let's go. So thanks for haranguing the troops and bringing everybody together.
Cool. Well, you guys are kicking butt in the Gitcoin round. Why don't you tell everyone about your proposal and what you have going with Common Stack?
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you. And been super grateful for the support. And I feel like it's pretty even. There's a good distribution of donations going to a lot of the projects. I think the 40 projects are doing really well. There's a good top 10 contingent that are getting lots of volume of donations and good donation size. So I think it's a win for the ReFi community for sure. Like the power of network effects, the power of co-marketing. It feels like we're building a really strong alliance here and supporting each other in new ways. It's been great to see like the Solar Punk guilds come together and Guido, Earth-Based Soul start to really like hold these kind of smaller communities within a niche community to really kind of strengthen the network. So that's just a high level comment, but I appreciate your kind words. Basically, top level for ReFi Commons Incubator is we are looking to create local ReFi DAO nodes or local ReFi DAO chapters using the Common Stack framework. And so the idea is that what we're doing at ReFi DAO by gathering all of the founders at the intersection of impact and Web3 together and having relationships and conversation, and also working with the investors in the space and the kind of core collaborators and contributors, the L1s, the grant funders. This is a really core kind of ecosystem service that has been a benefit to the global movement. But in order for us to really realize a regenerative economy at scale, we need this also happening at the local level in the key startup ecosystems that already exist. You're talking San Francisco, New York City, Boston, London, Berlin, Miami, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Lisbon now on the Web3 side. There's loads of these cities where there's thousands of founders, thousands of investors, billions of dollars of capital being invested, academics, university, and also governments looking at the challenge of climate change and wondering, what do we do about this? And so the vision for the Common Stack Prize is that we want to allow communities who are already meeting on the ground, founders in the network, to say, hey, we want to take lead on fostering a regenerative finance ecosystem here in our city. And we're willing to make a long-term commitment. We're asking founders to make a 7-year commitment towards realizing the vision of regeneration in their city. And if we have all of these different communities applying and proposing what regeneration looks like there, we can then invite the global community to vote. And we're going to do that. We're going to be inviting people in the community who've been core members, value line contributors, to mint a soulbound token. We're going to be introducing reputation tokens in ReFi DAO, and we're going to have a competition, a prize for people to vote for who should be the first 3 refi commons all over the world. So that's kind of the headline initiative. I can go deeper into what is a refi commons, how does it work, and also how does this roll up into like the global refi DAO governance model. But yeah, this is kind of what we're thinking.
Cool. So it's kind of like nodes, like polycentric, like local nodes is what I
Yes.
would, gather. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. It reminds me of Steve Case, right? AOL might be a bad word, right? But like AOL was one of the first. But Steve Case was a big impact investor, and he wrote a book a couple years ago called Rise of the Rest, and basically he went on bus tours around the U.S. to like do other startup cities. So like getting out of San Francisco and out of New York and out of Miami, like how
Super
can
cool.
someplace in Indiana, right, or someplace in Oklahoma or Colorado be a startup city? So I love that model.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's actually quite a lot of academic literature about what makes an effective startup ecosystem. Brad Feld from Techstars and the Founders Group out of Boulder has written this thing called the Startup Community Way, which is a distillation of over 20 years of research and practice of building startup ecosystems in other cities. And so there is actually quite a unique formula. And that formula actually informed what we've done at RefiDAO from the beginning, which is a founder-led startup community. And so there's some interesting kind of models and methods out there. And I think really the power is introducing Web3 and saying, okay, startup community, you now have a token which represents your vote in a treasury, which has a sum of money that you can then deploy towards whatever is the highest leverage, capital expenditure towards impact, whether that's grants or events or investing in startups or building a bridge or buying land, whatever it is, you now have the tool to vote and really to begin to practice effective governance at a local level, because this is new for everyone. Is like, how do you engage stakeholders? How do you create good models of governance? And I think if we can begin with small experiments at a local stage and begin to, move this forward, I think we'll see a lot of new people coming into refi going, I now have an easy way to make a vote and have an impact in a publicly verifiable manner where I know my money's going to the greatest good locally on the ground.
Yeah, it's almost like the next iteration of like crowdfunding or kickstarting or these campaigns, but with governance, with actually ownership and a say in what's happening.
Yeah, totally. And obviously it's limited in scope. We're talking cities, we're talking startup ecosystems, we're talking regeneration, it's not covering all the things, but I think there's an interesting experiment here that we want to run. And so I think, over the long term, we would want to see 12 or 15 very strong local startup communities becoming RefiDAO nodes or chapters, however you will, and seeing founders and investors come into the refi movement through those local nodes, seeing regular meetup events happen every month on the same day of the month, seeing a coordinated kind of global symphony of regeneration using the most powerful tools of our time. And so that's really like the long-term vision here.
Cool. It's interesting you bring up Brad Feld. He's here in Colorado, and he posted a couple weeks ago this "I don't hate crypto" post. I've literally shared it like every day for the last week. That awesome quote at the very end, I just dropped it in the chat. He says, "I regularly hear to be patient. It's not like the internet. It's like the internet was in 1999, ahead of its time. The builders are building, and it'll take over everything in the future." I think he's going to regret saying that, but I feel like Web3 and refi and blockchain and everything we're working on I think he's right. So I'm going to cast that vote.
Interesting. You think he'll regret saying that?
Well, not. I'm posting it so much that I'm going to just bring it up anytime. Jeremy from Open Forest Protocol yesterday was mentioning about investors having an issue with distributed ledger technology or blockchain or crypto.
Wrong investors.
Yeah, over the last, right, especially the fall, like FTX and SBF, and it's like blockchain bad, crypto bad, Web3 bad. So like, how do we tell that story? That's like, it's a tool. So that quote to me is like, hey, look, here's one of the biggest investors, his former partner in New York City, I think Fred Wilson, same thing. And blogging about crypto and Web3 and cap rates and refi and carbon, and like, I think we're early, and it's super exciting. Like explain the tweet you sent out earlier today about like your thesis on VCs and refi and why you think they're early.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll share my screen here for those watching just to provide some context. So I was on the train into Lisbon, reading through email inbox and noticed from Stonks, this like online crypto pitching platform, this chart which shows the percentage change in startups raised by vertical. This is a delta, is like a change in capital going, and a lot of money is going into climate, a lot of money is going into crypto, but also into social. And yes, they're still in SaaS, and there's all these other kind of lesser change. But my thesis is basically that climate and environmental markets are growing at an alarming rate. They're already multi-billion-dollar markets, and they're growing exponentially. And as these markets become more efficient, they're going to be digitized, because this is the path forward for everything. And in the same way that Mark Andreessen popularized like software is eating the world, yes, it's happening here in climate and environmental assets. But the real question is, can software both eat the world and help save it? Because what happened in the YC era is that it ate the world and created extractive business models rooted upon largely attention harvesting and data aggregation, and it's had some really negative second order and third order consequences for society as a whole, I would argue. And so I think this is a really pivotal moment for the refi space, not only to disrupt entire industries, but to do it in a way that is actually regenerative, both in the culture and the companies we make, and also in the societal impacts of the assets that we create and the way that we, promote these markets, as a whole.
Cool. I know it's been covered elsewhere, but like, what have you settled on for your definition today of refi? What is regenerative finance to you?
Yeah, I think the simplest term is it's a movement of people who are exploring how to use the best tools of our time to redesign money and heal the earth. And so I think thinking of it as a movement, this is a social movement, but it's also a technological movement. And it's recognized that money actually is one of the highest points of leverage. Money itself is a technology. And if we can redesign this technology to heal the earth and to restore our relationship to it, then we have a much more prosperous and sustainable future in the years to come. So you can take it in a number of other directions, kind of decoupling decentralized finance with regenerative economics. There's multiple layers to it, but I think at the heart, it's trying to redesign money to heal the earth.
Cool. I go back to like biomimicry in like ecosystems of like, in the interspecies money post, Jonathan Lagarde, he mentions, I'll find the text here in a minute, but he basically, references groups of people that are getting like signals, right? Like mycelium network or from the ecosystems, from nature to collaborate, cooperate, coordinate. And I can't help but think that these nodes, right? Like whether it be refi DAO nodes or basin nodes or regen network, whoever, like they're communicating, they're iterating and they're collaborating and they're competing, like just like that happens in nature. But it's still like symbiosis. Like it's still like, how do we move like the whole like that? There's been some criticism on the Gitcoin stuff of like, well, it's just a bunch of people competing for resources. It's like, well, that's nature, right? But it's like it's a collaboration, right, to compete for those resources, and that's just. I think we're acting more like nature, I guess, is the point. I feel like there's like some signals coming, and I feel like this technology that you mentioned is like part of that nature coming into humans.
Yeah, totally. And I think, taking signals from nature and recognizing the patterns of when, nature grows symbiotically and when certain species can become invasive, there are interesting models and interesting signs here. And I think there is this, consistent collaborator coordination dilemma, which is like, do you defect or do you collaborate? And those incentives are always there, like regardless of whether there's natural capital assets or fossil fuel backed assets. Like these incentives are kind of the incentives of the game. And so I think it's really interesting to see the refi space balance collaborating, supporting each other, and also this like, hey, winner take all, I want to dominate kind of energy, because I think it's very human in our nature. So yeah, it's I think it'll be a timeless dilemma that we always revisit again and again.
Like over my thinking with refi and regenerative finance is like, abundance, right? Like if anyone's read Peter Diamandis's book Abundance, and I highly recommend Bold. It's like, I feel like
Cool.
regenerative finance is like creating a world of abundance, that there's enough for everyone. If
Yeah.
money, right, or natural resources are regenerative, then we live in an abundant world. So that's what settles for me.
Yeah, and I think abundance is also, an expression, also an experience, like a human experience, that you have enough, and that sometimes isn't. Yeah, that experience is hard to find in modern society. A lot of our culture tells us we don't have enough, and actually the business models are leveraging our dopamine receptors to constantly tell us we don't have enough, and that they have the thing that we can buy which will give us just enough till the next hit. And whether that's cars or fashion or food or alcohol or drugs or sex or whatever it is, it's kind of got this endless cycle. And I think at the heart of the regenerative finance movement is also, I think, a spiritual and conscious evolution that recognizes, actually, like, if you reframe this and really look at what the science says about what humans need to be well and to thrive, those things don't make us happy long term. Money beyond a certain threshold can be corrosive to a person's quality of life. And once you have your basic needs met, it's actually about relationships. It's about how deep and meaningful relationships with people do you have, and what is your day like, what are your cortisol levels, how much time do you spend in nature. And like long-term Harvard study of people on their deathbed looking back, the number one most regret is that people worked too much and didn't spend enough time with their loved ones. And so I think abundance is also rooted in this like conscious experiment of what it is to be human. And so I think the more and more the refi movement can cultivate this awareness of abundance and propagate that into the products we build and the communities we create, the more effective we'll be at, this big task of trying to address climate change, biodiversity collapse, systemic injustice. Like, it requires a different headspace as well as a different heart space.
Love that. So we have a really good question from Jan here, but I think the lead in is that Refi DAO has worked with a bunch of founders, and then you're also you're going to be working with investors, and you're also going to be working with community members. So if you want to maybe frame that question about investors in the context of what you've learned with Refi DAO.
Yeah, and are you talking this question specifically of investors willing to cap their returns? Is that right? Or do you want me to kind of just frame the ecosystem more broadly?
Just in general, I mean, if you can answer that question, or just your thoughts, what comes up on that?
Yeah. So appreciate the question, Jan, and it's something that Magenta from Bloom Network has also been advocating for, and we've had a number of discussions about. And the concept of capped returns isn't one that I have seen in the refi investor circles to date. So we have a kind of pretty loose and open relationship with about 28 VCs who are actually deploying capital in refi. And we just kind of try and help wherever we can, connect the dots, connect with deal flow. We have like a submit pitch page on our website, so founders who are raising can submit their pitch decks, and then investors can reach out or ask us for an intro. But this idea around capped returns, I think, is really a part of the LP agreement as somebody raises a fund. And so far, I'm not aware of any refi investors who've gone out and raised a fund with a capped return kind of structure to say, hey, we're limiting our returns for our LPs at 4 to 5x. And so I think this is an interesting idea, but also one that I would say I have less understanding of, because I think the underlying premise is like, the question is, so that successful ventures can capture more upsides, and that can be channeled to the protocol and communities. This is an interesting piece because if you look at the cap table of the average Web3 project, a large portion is going to community. And, you've got like 10 to 20% for a founding team, 10 to 20% for investors. But actually having an organizational model that gives a lot of space to the community, I think, is what we have now as like a culture precedent Web3. It's very different than like a Web2 cap table. And so I would challenge and question, do you want to cap returns as a cultural precedent for a movement? Or do you want to demonstrate these are massive outsized returns, attract as much capital as you can, scale successful ventures that, exit to community effectively? So that would be my question, is what's the most effective way to attract the best amount of capital, value aligned, and distribute that capital when ventures are successful accordingly?
Yeah, what comes to mind there is progressive decentralization, right? Of like at the end of the day, right? If there's a core group of team and investors who are building the thing, but then you can exit to community where there's not an outsized influence of any, whether it be you or me or a certain group or a certain investor. It's like, how do you progressively decentralize into a community-owned asset and govern it? And something we talk about a lot in LexDAO is like the arbitration and dispute resolution, and like the Aragon has worked on that with the court system, and that's going to be a thing, right? Of like people like, hey, fighting over resources. So it's like, I don't think we can ignore that kind of stuff.
Totally, yeah, and I think it's a thing that the refi community should be preparing for in this bear market, because I've had in the last 9 months between Refi Podcast, Refi DAO, and Refi Spring a number of projects either directly involved or indirectly where somebody says they're going to do a thing, charges a bunch of money, gets paid, and then doesn't do the thing and doesn't give the money back. And this kind of dynamic of how do you arbitrate and how do you decide, I think is actually a really important thing for the space. And we have to yes, build like a solar punk future, but also recognize we live in a space that has, bad actors, and, to see the whole picture and not just be like persistently optimistic and missing out, the other side of the equation.
Well, cool. Well, John, you've been influential in the space of refi with the podcast and the Refi DAO and Refi Spring and everything you're doing. Are there questions from the audience? That we're live on YouTube, we're live on LinkedIn. Jan posted a good question. Monty just shared the investor pitch deck. You can submit there. So I just want to offer questions up for the audience if they want to ask John. You have his attention for a few more minutes before he's got another full day of Refi Friday Gitcoin shilling to do, I think, and it's getting late there.
Yeah, I would love also to look at the, if you can send me the YouTube stream. I can see the LinkedIn one, but yeah, I would love to check out the YouTube stream as well.
Cool, I'll drop that here in the chat.
Cool, bro. And yeah, as we're in a kind of pause period, what about you, man? What's latest with Basin DAO? What's happening?
Yeah, things are moving along with Basin. We're building our beta app, which we're working at solving primarily the biodiversity crisis, and carbon is part of that. Natural capital is part of that, and as real estate, under all of it, for me, with my career and 20 years in investment real estate, habitat is real estate. Like if you can look at there's a really cool website, a project that was featured in the New York Times called Map of Life. And you hear a lot about the IUCN Red List of like threatened species and endangered species, but Map of Life is actually tracking habitat as like an indicator of like, we don't have to wait until the species are threatened or endangered or extinct. We can look at their habitat, and if their habitat is shrinking, then we know where we need to invest. And for us, habitat is real estate is habitat, and using, as I say, driving agnostic and indifferent capital into climate, carbon, nature. So we're working at structuring these deals, basically building a treasury of how you actually sell. If someone's going to buy a office building or a multifamily building or an industrial building, spend $5 million. Why wouldn't they buy a forest? Why wouldn't they buy a wetland? Why wouldn't they buy habitat? So that's the core of what we're doing. It's it's messy. It's convoluted. There's a lot of there's over 1 million species that are known. So we have a lot of work to do.
But it's an amazing opportunity. I think this is something that my wife and I are kind of facing right now, as we have a property in the UK that's generating income, and she basically wants to sell the property and buy a plot of land that we could never build on, and it's just got beautiful, thriving, mainly flora but some fauna, and just a place basically to enjoy with the kids, interact with other homeschooling communities. And it's that kind of thing where it's like, if preservation of that land produces an income and a yield, then the kind of dynamics start to change. And I think at the simplest level, if we can start to acquire land and preserve them and have easy income streams that are as reliable as somebody's rent or something like that, then the whole societal structure begins to change. And so I think the top level of what you guys are doing, if that income stream is possible, there's something really powerful on the other side there.
And that's exactly it, John. Is like my clients over the last 20 years, they buy a property, like they're buying real estate, right, in a building, but they're really buying the income stream,
Yes.
and they're buying the security of that income stream. They're buying the low risk of that income stream. They're buying some tax benefits. They're buying some prestige, and some legacy that comes along with that, and owning that. The flexibility of appreciation and being able to sell that. So that's what we're trying to do. Is like if someone was comparing, right, versus an apartment building, an industrial building. Like why wouldn't they choose a forest, right? Why wouldn't they choose a beautiful, pristine floodplain or wetland, or a very rich ecosystem that sequesters carbon? So that's apples to apples.
Assuming capital gains are similar, possible projections, like it's the income equation. So yeah, love what you guys are doing, and excited to get more involved. I didn't know if there are any other questions from the community, or we should riff for the last few minutes, but there's lots of stuff that we can go into for sure.
Yeah, I think Sage is going to pop on here in a minute from Resci Network. They have a grant, her and Ned. So the DSci, Resci community.
Yeah.
What would be the ask for those following you in your work with ReFi DAO and Common Stacks? Like, what do you want to see them do? Do you want them to start local nodes? Do you want them to get involved somewhere, at the top level, or do the startup, founder circles? Like, what do you need most?
I think the main ask is to support our Gitcoin grant. So you've obviously added that grant here in the chat, but I think we need to raise. The target is 100K. We won't get there for this round, but we really do need 75K to, in earnest, kick off the ReFi Commons prize and commit to that whole timeline. And so every donation counts on the Gitcoin grant. All of that money goes to the Common Stack team and their process. We're also developing open source software, improving what they're doing, looking to make it more mobile first and accessible. Like there's a lot of work that's going into this that we're also looking for external grant funding. So if you like the idea of local startup communities, we'd love your support now. That's the single ask. And then if we raise enough money, we would love to kick this off and then invite everybody who wants to be a part of it to join. We won't run founder circles this quarter, but we are looking at kind of refactoring the whole program into a founders guild led by founders. So Daryl and I are trying to take another step back and allow founders to really shape the culture of the guild within the community. And dropping a little bit of alpha here, that we are also have verbal commits from 3 investors to be able to write checks at the earliest stage for a founder's journey in ReFi, and pair them not only with investment money, their first check and a pre-seed, but also with a world-class product design and research studio to really help their journey be the most successful possible. So that's really exciting, and we're building an open source curriculum to be able to structure the venture studio, and that curriculum will be open to all the members of the community. The Founders Guild, the Community Manager Guild, any other guilds that form will have this kind of core Web3 climate curriculum that people can go through, and it makes it a little easier to have those weekly meetings because there's a weekly piece of material that you can look at. Not too dissimilar to what Kernel's done, but it's very different in like the topic and structure. This is how do you build a business in this space? How do you be successful? What do you need to know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it takes a certain investor to understand the complexity. I mean, investors obviously are smart, right? But climate and nature and biodiversity is complex. So how do you distill that down? So if you have support like you're talking about with storytelling and marketing and a curriculum to help distill that message down, I think that's key.
Totally, man. Absolutely. Well, hey, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks to you, Timo, and your team at Basin DAO for putting this together. I love Basin.live. We're totally going to take one from your song sheet and do some in ReFi Pod. And call out to all the regens out there actively participating in Gitcoin. And it's been an absolute pleasure, Timo.
Cool. Well, thanks, John. Keep up the good work. Appreciate it. And we'll see you on the interwebs.
Peace, man. Ciao.
See ya. Cool. So we're going to give Sage a minute. It looks like here she is.
Hey.
Good timing. You were waiting to click that button to come on, I think.
Was I? I literally just scarfed down my lunch and barely sat down, but perfect divine timing for everything.
Well, cool. Well, welcome to the show. Just for reference, we are streaming on YouTube and LinkedIn as well simultaneously. So if people are watching and they have questions for Sage and Resci or DSci Network, drop them in the chat on any of the 3. systems, and we'll go from there. But Sage, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us. Ned Horning, my co-founder, was invited. He had a pre-existing commitment. So he works full-time with Region Network as well in Region Network development. And so, calendars and multiple calendars are always a fun game to play.
Cool. Well, I'm going to drop your grant page here in the chat, and why don't you just give everyone a rundown of I guess one, maybe ReSci, right, before we explain ReSci Network, maybe touch on DeSci and kind of where this sprung from. I think that's an interesting story.
Yeah. So decentralized science is a term that's been around for probably a year or 18 months at this point, and popularized within the Twitter sphere, within Web3. And essentially, decentralized science is looking to subvert the norms of academic research and to provide alternative pathways for highly iterative and collaborative science. So the premise is, okay, the publishing structure does not make sense. People don't have access to what they need. People don't have $15,000 to publish in Nature, even if they have the right social connections to talk to Nature or be recognized for a submission. And the way the collaboration happens is pretty sticky. Also, just the way that grant funding works is sort of, research is meant to really be predicated on existing work, which in a lot of ways makes total sense. And in a lot of ways, if you're wanting to test something radical or a regenerative practice that's been, stewarded by indigenous communities and not acknowledged by capitalistic systems, like that, those types of grants just fall through the cracks. And so, yes, grant mechanisms, traditional grant mechanisms are a real choke point. And so decentralized science emerged, and people were largely using that as a tool to drive forward biological sciences. So people have been studying longevity. So you can think about VitaDAO, Molecule as sort of fundamental examples of decentralized science in the Web3 space. And I think those groups set an amazing tone for what is possible beyond academic, including academics, but going beyond the limited academic model. And so when I think about, okay, decentralized science is a framework, it isn't inherently one type of science or not another type of science. But what Ned Horning, my co-founder, and I noticed is that, wow, a lot of attention, media resources, written resources, blogs, like everything is so deep into biotech that DeSci may as well be called like decentralized biotech. Like what is happening? And it was just sort of like the early adopters happened to be in biotech and in longevity. And then that's where all the momentum was rolling. And so our desire is really to create space for community and to create infrastructure that can help support decentralized science for ecosystem regeneration. And within that, we are double clicking on regenerative agriculture, but because it is sort of like the lens that both Ned and I are like comfortable with exploring and have backgrounds in. I have never owned a farm. I hope to one day have land very soon, be stewarding land. But I have studied permaculture. I studied advanced level plant physiology, was a biology major in college. I went down quite a few microbiology rabbit holes, including environmental microbiology and a lot of like some of these hot terms now about environmental DNA. I was doing some of the first like eDNA metagenomic analysis experiments as a part of my senior thesis at Pomona College. So yeah, terrestrial systems, soils, like those make a lot more sense to me. So I feel attracted to leaning into regenerative ag as a particular type of ecosystem regeneration that we can help support. And Ned, his background is that he used to work with NASA. He nerds out really hard on remote sensing, and one of his coolest experiments that he's running with Region Network Development, which is like the science arm of Region, referred to as R&D for short. He's studying sheep silvopasture in vineyards in California. And so his job in that particular body of work right now is to help find ways of remotely verifying whether or not that silvopasture is happening. Are the sheep being taken out into grazing patterns? How to verify whether grazing is or isn't happening, those sorts of things. And so yeah, so Resci Network has, in its inception, it was like, wow, any and all type of ecosystem regeneration we just want to hold space for. And I think that's actually still true at the umbrella level, because what is a network? It's everything. It's connecting resources between people, connecting different sets of knowledge, economic resources, all of it. And so I think what's emerging right now is an autonomous research community under the Resci Network umbrella that's dedicated to regenerative ag. And then under that will be specific ARCs, autonomous research communities for specific bioregions. And so I have open invitations to multiple people who are really deep into marine ecosystems and want to be talking about biodiversity in oceans, mangrove health, all of it. And I'm here for it. It's just not my background. And so the invitation I've basically am extending is like anyone who feels like they have the drive and connection to a particular place where marine regeneration is happening, like you are more than welcome to come and like start an ARC within the Resci Network umbrella. We encourage it. I'm simply trying to be very mindful of how much I can bite off at once in starting a new endeavor, and wanting to be specific in use case for trying something very new so that we have tangible outcomes and feedback around what we're trying to do, which is effectively hosting a database about what types of regenerative projects are going on, like who is trying to develop a methodology for regeneration, regardless of what stage they're at. So holding that project database, holding a scientist database, and then using relative expertise tags and location tags to hopefully facilitate those folks finding each other. Whether it's like one-off consulting or they form a relationship for a methodology development sprint and later a peer review sprint, all of that. So I believe in full bloom, like within the scope of this year, 2023, what I would love to see is like a really healthy database with hundreds of scientists in it, and projects that are actually working. I don't necessarily need or want it to be full of projects if the projects aren't updating their profiles or engaging in the community, but inviting whoever wants to be involved there, and to facilitate interesting conversations about types of regenerative practices. And then as really like the meat and potatoes of this, so to speak, facilitating sprints that would be 6 to 8 weeks long. And their essential goal is just to develop a methodology that is basically in this concept note stage. And I'm taking that phrase from Region Network and what they are doing for methodology development and review. So basically Region spun up R&D, their science arm, with a long-term vision of eventually their science wing sort of becoming its own autonomous, decentralized entity. And so where I see the play here is like folks who perhaps might one day want their methodology to be recognized in some sort of holistic eco-credit and then available for participation in an eco-credit marketplace hosted by Region or other similar groups that might emerge, is that a project proponent would say, hey, we want to make a case for agroforestry in Colombia, for example, and we believe that this is important. These are the general sort of shapes of the questions and hypotheses we have about what actions represent regeneration in this ecosystem. Take that concept note, and if there's some level of coherence and sort of a green light from Region Network being able to say, okay, this idea is relatively feasible. You've taken a first pass. That's great. Let's then line up a time slot for a methodology development sprint and find the right scientists, and also I think DMRV specialists, people who can look at the practical questions that scientists are developing and saying, okay, what hardware, what software would we need to do that? Where's that data going to go? How does that interplay with all these lofty dreams of like integrating IPFS into all of this, you know? And so I can pause there because I just said a lot and I want to like pause for clarifying.
I think if we go back to the very beginning, you said you noticed a gap or a trend in the biotech and the longevity, and you said, wait a minute, why isn't this movement happening for ecosystems and probably for biodiversity and biology and even carbon? Yeah, and so I think that's super astute because it's like a perfect use case for everything we're talking about here in refi and regeneration and natural capital and whatnot. So, and then also like the tagging system is super interesting about like expertise, location, and for those who don't know or maybe haven't heard about like the Regen Registry and methodology development, like these are open source methods for carbon projects or eco credits for ecological assets, ecological claims that happen in the real world. And so how do we like link like people's actions and the science and the claims and then the financial flows of value? So everything Sage is talking about here is like right at the core, right, of like how do we verify the ground truth? Which so right. you're like you have the hard job. You and Ned and Regen Network. This is the hard stuff. Everyone else. It's easy.
Is the really beautiful and messy parts, right? Because when I think about, you know, what should the role, or in my personal opinion, like what should the role of Regen be if Regen is, you know, they're maintaining the Regen blockchain that the Regen marketplace runs on. They're really like holding space as an economic facilitator. And I do believe that credits can have a real role in fueling circular economics if the right principles are in place for how the projects run, how much, you know, like how much off the top is a marketplace taking, and then how much is going back to the continued support of the land and of the people stewarding the land and of the scientists doing the work to help like verify the whole system. I think that capital is required to continue to protect land in this day and age, and like regenerative practices take time, take energy. They're not necessarily like free, and oftentimes at the beginning there might, especially for farms transitioning to regenerative practices, there could be, you know, a first or second year like dip in their income as a business while they're transitioning. So to look at the whole system, there's got to be long-term continual capital influx, and I think credits can have a place there. And so I'm stoked that Regen exists and that the marketplace is live. And as I zoom out, it also feels kind of apparent to me that Regen, if they're holding the marketplace, should not necessarily be the ones like calling all the shots on like what methodologies are good or bad or like up to snuff scientifically, and sort of having the spirit of decentralization at the core of it to be able to say, okay, this entity that's emerging, Resign Network, sees itself more as a nonprofit research institution and a space holder. And so we're not going to like inherently profit off of the ratification of these methodologies into eco credits. We just want to make sure that like good science is happening. And I think there'll be a lot of nuance to tease out and how the financials work for that long term. But right now, our hypothesis is like, we're going to raise grants for this, like every other nonprofit. And as best we can, sort of have financial independence from philanthropic donors. And we have an American entity, a Delaware LLC, and we're like very much looking at how do we have fiscal sponsorship with an entity that can help us raise large donations from individuals or corporations, etc., so that we have multiple donation pathways aside from just Gitcoin rounds. Because, you know, I think we're going to need, if we can accomplish what I think we can accomplish, we're going to need way more funding for the scientists. That's going to be the biggest chunk of this, is pulling scientists in, paying them well for their time, and making sure that the process feels good.
Is it true, Sage, that, you know, I don't know tons about the academic and the scientific research field, but from what I've heard or gathered is that a lot of big corporations basically support the academic institutions, and then science is basically it's open source or it's peer reviewed or what, but then it's used, it becomes profited on in a corporation, whether it be any type of, you know, supply chain or chemicals or medicine or like these so you're trying to like alleviate or like or create another alternative that's not a biased or like a kind of an extractive, like land grabby type system.
And I think something that might be hard for folks to see if they haven't like done any deep like scientific literature searches, like if you weren't a science major and you didn't have to do this, it might at surface level seem like, well, why wouldn't, you know, scientists report their data and they report how they analyze the data, and if they show it some result is statistically significant, like who are we to judge that? Like they know what they're doing, and they do know what they're doing. And also the way that the money is piped into universities from big pharma, from oil and gas, all of it. The way that you ask a research question directly affects how you can use, if you know statistical tools well, you can form any question. It's just about like having wool basically pulled over your eyes. Yeah, you can create a statistically significant result that proves anything. And so how do we decouple motives of capital, motives of economic gain for gain's sake? How do we decouple that from the way that research questions are being asked? I think that's the heart of what I intend when I'm like using the word ethical science. And I mean, to be fair, I think if any for-profit entity had to take control of science, I mean, Region Network is a great one to have. It's not that I distrust those people. It's that the system of saying, okay, this is a marketplace where eco credits are being sold, the underpinning methodologies then I think need to go through a different pipeline for the sake of everyone being able to have a deeper level of trust. And Web3 is all a balance of like trustless systems and trusted individuals. So how can we, I mean, this is the part where I'm like, whoa, things are really going to get crazy. But being able to create, you know, on-chain identities for the scientists that take part in this, what does that look like? There's so much to all of this.
No, and what's interesting is, you know, like John just mentioned earlier on the first segment, was the refi passport or refi identity. Gitcoin has their passport they're working on. Jan is working on like a identity system. Like, so it's like, how do you create trust, right, and legitimacy around the science and around and know like who's being controlled, right? Like he said, like science or statistics can be skewed any which way, and a nonprofit can be spun up to like tell a story any which way, depending on which side of the equation you want, right? If you want oil and gas, or if you want ecosystem regeneration, or, you know, whatever the cause, you know, or activism is, you can spin it either way. So it's like, how do you do it in a more trustless, right, but trusted way, with which is an oxymoron, but like that's transparent. So I think there's some, you know, obviously big questions, right, that we need to ask, and there's gonna be some growing pains, but like you what you're doing is core to that answer.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time to be alive, isn't it?
it is. It's like up and down though, right? It's like
Hmm.
big steps, and then we go back some, and then it's
But it
day in,
isn't
day out.
boring.
It's not boring, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so just for reference, also, we're this is on LinkedIn, on YouTube. The point of doing this for me personally, at least, is to like bring in the wider community, non-crypto, non-Web3,
Mhm.
non-blockchain, kind of I spend a lot of time in the air miners community, which is focused on carbon removal. A lot of scientists, a lot of engineers, a lot of business people, and they've been very skeptical of like crypto and blockchain and Web3. But the point of these segments we're doing is to like, hey, like look, there's actually tools and resources and real money, right, with Gitcoin Climate and Gitcoin Alpha going
Mhm.
to these things. So like, what would you say to someone who's like in like a peer of yours, like a scientist or someone who has an environmental science background or biology background or physics background, mechanical engineering? What would you say if they're kind of crypto curious or climate, they want to get involved, but they're not sure how?
Mm. All right. So, for people who are scientists and are perhaps on the cusp of getting involved in decentralized science but don't know where to start, this is a great question. Sorry, my leg's going asleep. Just readjusting here. Um, well, I first of all can understand that coming into Web3 may feel daunting because I think there's a lot of different ways that we communicate with each other. So I just want to speak to the sense of like potential platform overwhelm or platform anxiety. I would say find one little corner that interests you and start there, and don't feel like you need to engage in everything all at once. Don't force yourself to feel like you need to be active on Twitter and Telegram and Discord all at once. Just um, find a group of people that feels like it really resonates with your curiosity. Trust your curiosity, um, and it'll all be okay. um, I know that at Resci Network, my intention is to create a container for communications that feels better than what I experienced diving into the deep end of Web3 over a year ago, about a year and a half ago now. Um, and we are exploring the use of a tool called Console, which essentially allows for hosting external sites in frame within a communications hub. So,
Hmm.
like our directory of scientists will technically live within our communications hub. It'll be there on a tab for direct referencing, and people will be able to easily command F search for whoever's in the community if they want to learn more about who they're talking to. The directory is right there. It's all they need. And then having a lot of space held for actual exploration of scientific topics. So,
Sage, I haven't heard of that. What's the website, or what's the, if I do a search, console
console.xyz. Yep.
XYZ? Okay, cool.
And my intention with Console for Resci Network is to host people who are interested in becoming a part of ARCs, the autonomous research communities that are the people who are active participants and available for contribution to methodology development and review processes. So what I'm wanting to address is the fact that like in the past there's been a lot of noise, overwhelm, hype, etc. in things like Discord servers. So I'm wanting to create a paradigm where people are excited to come into communications hub. They feel like the people who are there are active participants. So we're not necessarily going to have like a lot of room for spectators in our console. Like it's going to be about the people who are there to do the work, if that makes sense, to create a
Absolutely.
container of safety for people to actually connect on a deeper level. Because, my sense of having comms in a Discord channel that's just got a lot going on in it is like how much am I really going to open if I feel like I'm on like total broadcast to the world? And we're going to have some challenging conversations too around like, how do these arcs self-organize in terms of governance and voting, and how they actually come to group coherence on whether a methodology sort of passes or fails or goes on to the next stage. And I think it's about those groups having excellent containers for working together, having space held for them, and then basically pushing updates to the public facing Notion and saying, hey, if you want to be a spectator and support of Resci Network, you're a donor, you want to know what we're doing, hell yes. Like this ARC, they've got their methodology review process posted within the Resci Network Notion, and they're going to make weekly updates there about the progress they're making. And I think, people being able to comment on Notion, or us sort of striking up external banter around this on Twitter. Like Twitter's a great place for that, to say like, hey, wider Web3 community, what do you think about what we're doing? But to, yeah, really give the scientists that show up a feeling of psychological safety, that the container is actually held and it actually means something. I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I resonate with everything you just said about like, I remember it's been 20 months now or 18 months, but like getting involved in some of the discords, right? And Telegram and like Signal. It's like, I don't need another, and now I'm on all of them, using all of them. And I figured out how to, like just, you can figure out how to juggle it. Like you said, you turn some off and you check them when you feel like it. You tune, you try to kind of treat it like I treat it like a coffee shop. Like if I'm not at the coffee shop, I don't care what's being said, right? But if I go in the coffee shop and I overhear something, like, cool, I'll join the conversation. But like, I think that for science people who are very used to like focusing, right, or doing deep work or deep knowledge work, like all this noise and chatter and Discord is like the worst, right? So like having another alternative of I love that.
Yep, we're exploring it, and my intention is to finish up this Gitcoin fundraising round, and then go pretty deep on inviting people into the console, the scientists who have opted into our directory. And I see, this is my first time using Riverside. I see that it has a screen share option. Would I be able to use that?
Yeah, and just while you're doing that, yeah, go ahead. I was just curious if you've used Guild, if console is similar or something totally different.
Oh, I don't know what Guild is.
Guild connects. It's like token gated systems. Like you can connect. If you have a token in your wallet, you connect to your Discord or a Telegram or a Google Doc based on like different NFTs or tokens in your wallet. So I'll just cool. Sweet. Go ahead.
I'll have to do a little bit of digging on that. And to start, Resci Network is not a project with a token, and we don't have NFTs involved at this stage. We're really just looking to get people involved and to try decentralized peer review and to see if it can work, and then sort of be in tandem thinking a lot about tooling, but almost like in the sense of not wanting to put the cart before the horse, curating a team to do the first methodology review, I think is important. So when you type in resci.network, it will redirect you to our Notion page. So this is where our information lives. So here under Web3 community, this will tell you more about our proposed budget for this quarter, how much we would like to raise in this Gitcoin round, everything we've done since the end of GR15, funds that have been used, funds that are sort of in holding for particular uses, all of that. And then the directories are here, and you can see that scientists, there's an intake form right here at the top for people that want to put in their information. And so then people can list their areas of expertise, their particular biomes, their location, all of that stuff. And we're hoping to be able to match people, their expertise, with the methodology projects directory here. So Coffee Impact Collective, Adaptive Agroforestry, There's a few here, and we're really excited about this. So Darina is working with us and helping with some scientist outreach and onboarding for the Resci Network team. And then she's got a methodology project herself around sustainable coffee and cacao. And her methodology ideas are influenced by this practice-based methodology that Sev at Ecolabs is working on. And so we're still working things out, but I think that a great starter methodology to try this development process with would be Sev's adaptive agroforestry project. So we're in the process of just sort of nailing that out, seeing what that looks like as a first step. Yeah. Do you have any questions about any of that?
I think, in my experience, Basin, we've been working on our own methodology. It's not necessarily science. I mean, it's not fully on just like one thing in science. It's like a holistic methodology around the the higher and better use of real estate rather than the highest and best use of real estate. Like, how can you look at a piece of property or a building or a degraded piece of land and incorporate all these different things like in a modular way? Like, when I listen to Regen Network and the vision of like modular methodologies being able to be applied to a project, like the Basin stack is like it's like kind of an incorporation of that, of like, okay, how do you take a polygon and a piece of property and then maximize the value, not just the financial value, but like the environmental value, the biodiversity value, the natural capital value, the social value, all the ecosystem services.
Yeah.
But what I've found is, I think Regen Network, I think they have so much going on, and this is like almost like supplemental, right? Of like, if Sev or myself, we can turn to you and work with you and Ned, and then simultaneously do a concept note and get feedback from the Regen registry community. I feel like it's a really good like just use case of like building on top of Regen.
Right.
In a way.
Yeah. The goal is to be in synergy with them and to help them, because their R&D team is not very big, and they're not at this time particularly like resourced to handle all of this. And so wanting to make sure that concept notes are like in alignment with their ethos, and also take off a lot of the burden that's been resting on like one or two individuals that are the primary reviewers of the concept notes.
Well, cool. We really appreciate you coming on, sharing about your Gitcoin grant and also what the Resci Network is doing. I'm a big supporter of your work and Ned's work. I love the idea of the stewardship methodology and the practice-based methodology. I think there's just so much there that we didn't even talk about today. But I think I encourage people just to go check out the grant, get involved, donate, and then just follow Sage and Ned's work.
Yes. I appreciate your time today. Thanks for having me on. Any donations are greatly appreciated. We're hoping to raise 25K, which is what we raised in GR15. It'd be amazing if we could hit 25K again. And again, our proposed budget is published on our Notion, and most of the money is going to scientists in this quarter. So please support if you can. And I'll hop off and make space for endangered tokens here. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Well, thanks, Sage. Really appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Ignacio.
Hello. Can you hear me?
How you doing? I hear you're great.
Doing good. Best Refi Friday ever, right?
It's live, like video. Like I was telling John earlier that like seeing people face to face and their smiles and their reactions is like, it's really nice. It's a different, it's a different experience.
Different than the spaces we were used to having all these Refi Fridays a year ago or so.
Yes. And there's still a lot of that going on, right? Like, later today, the CO2 cult or the Giveathon is happening right now as we speak on Twitter. So after this, I'll jump over there and then I think there's something on Monday. There's the Atlanta Stow Twitter Space Marathon. So it's still happening, but it's just different, right? It's a little more intimate. I feel like a little more personal.
Yeah, sure. It's nice to see faces, and yeah, well, I had to organize my hair a little bit. I have my curly hair kind of floating around, but but it's nice. How you been? How's been Gitcoin for you this round, this alpha round?
Good. Yeah, just enjoying hearing about all the different projects and getting to know the founders better and the people doing it. Yeah, it's in a way these interviews have been a little bit selfish. Like I'm actually like I talked to two people in India, and then talked to Darina. She was in Sicily that day, and then talked to Agroforestry DAO in Brazil, and then talked to Burke in Turkey, and now you in Chile today. So it's like it's fun. Like I'm having fun, like talking to people all over the world. So
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, awesome. Like you're getting all the content, you're getting all the information, the alphas. You're getting all the alpha information by first hand. So yeah, that's cool. And
cool. Well, let's get some alpha.
Sure.
Let's get some alpha on endangered tokens. I commented on your new model. I don't know if you can screen share your new modeling around the trees.
I would love
to me, Ignacio, it almost looked like a museum. It almost looked like a metaverse museum of trees, if the internet will allow us to do that, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, I would love to. You might see my brother-in-law cooking back in the back, but that's just regular stuff from like of the house. So I will try to stream that. This is here. Let me see.
And if we're having internet issues, just go ahead and talk about it too. You can tell everyone about the mirror you're working on and the scanning you're doing of the trees, which would be cool.
Yeah, I would love to do it with the actual here. Yeah, I think I can do this. It's gonna work. Can you see there?
Yeah, I can see it great.
Just trying to. Okay. So, yeah, this is our first showroom of the actual endangered trees. These are georeference specimens that are actually alive. These are dinosaurs, tree dinosaurs still alive. Gomortega keule is a species that was alive around when Pangea continent was still a thing, and when the splitted continents, we had the luck to receive it here in Chile, and now it's the only place in the world where it's still alive. So here, well, it's just each tree has its own characteristics, which were modeled by a 3D model artist. It's not like LiDAR or laser model. It's a video camera, photos, and then just the artist trying to get the tree the best they can in Unreal Engine 5. You can all the details here. It's photographic details. The moss on, you can see that moss in the actual tree. The leaves. This is how you would see the leaves in a Gomortega keule species. So you most likely will only see it here in your lifetime, because to be able to see one of these, it's even rare for us Chileans. It's not easy to find one of these. You need to go to certain places where they're still alive, and we've had the luck to work with these beings and trying to add digital value to these. So each one of them has a number. If you can see, the number represents their place in the forest. Like this is a private land owner who has this kind of the walking trail through his land, and he has been sharing this to students, to universities, um, and just give me 1 minute.
No problem. Yeah.
Okay. So, as I was telling you, the numbers represent the position of the tree within that walking. If you come here by yourself and you do the walking trail, you will find these specimens along the trail. Um, this is only 10 specimens that we have been able to in Unreal Engine 5 because, well, budget. That's why, well, we hope with this next Gitcoin round we will be able to tokenize more of them. Well, they tokenize in a way that they already tokenized as a video, but we are now trying to do the replicas of it. How so? It's like, okay, we have the original token, that's the georeference specimen of the video token, and then the owner of that token is that he gets some of the benefits of selling the replicas of each tree. That's how we're trying to convert this from a liability to a biodiversity asset is one way of doing it. We also would like to add MRV to it, but to do MRV to a tree is still kind of expensive. Um, we we've been thinking about satellite imaging. We've also been thinking about frequency recording, like to do MRV is kind of part of in development. So then, if you hold the token, you will be able to actually know for sure that your tree is alive. That would be the idea of all this eventually. For now, you have the georeference, and you can check it on Google Earth and see that there's the green spot instead of a empty spot. That could be a way of recognizing your tree. But we would like to have a little bit more robust MRV for each one of the trees, token holders. Um, we are developing here because this is just the showroom of the individuals, but we are positioning them within the map. There will be a virtual tourism of the actual trees, and hopefully we can add more entertainment add-ons, so it will be more fun for everyone to just experience an forest and support the project through this experience, right? And in that supporting, that part of the revenue will go to the landowner, and we will be able to keep scaling this to other species, like for example, in America, a great place to do something like this would be the sequoias, right? They are pretty magnificent trees.
Absolutely. Yep.
Like they'd be pretty fun to have them, in a 3D model, or in a virtual reality experience. There's already some people doing some things like that. I would love that they are, because this could help support the ecosystems in which they live in. So yeah, do you have any questions regarding this showroom we are looking at?
If you don't mind, if you don't mind sharing maybe some of the technical aspects of, like, I think, Unreal Engine, the sensing you're using, and then you also mentioned the acoustics that you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I love that aspect. So if you want to just expand on some of the I call them nerdy details, but I like the details.
Well, this Unreal Engine 5, I am pretty new to it. I'm learning. We are doing this. We had the luck to find this great partner that loved the project, and he had been already working in the modeling in Unreal Engine for other type of trees. He's working with indigenous communities to actually it's kind of similar. We had like the same mission, and we find out we had like a pretty common mission, but we were more approached in the Web3 environment, and he was more approached in the artist ecosystem within the country. So we're now like partnering up to do this. But more than Unreal Engine 5, it is the latest engine for Unreal Engine, and it's getting pretty good graphics. You can get a lot of details with this engine. Like for example, this one's right here, like the crust within Gomorrega Keule looks exactly like this. It has like little spots all over it. And I think the modeler did a pretty good job making a digital tree from a video. You can see fruits up there.
It's amazing. I mean, to be able to look up and see the depth and see the detail. Are you taking pictures and videos of the tree, or are you scanning them? Like, what's the process to get it into Unreal Engine?
We have been doing it only with videos and pictures. We've taken several pictures of each one of the trees and the leaves, the details of the leaves and the details of bark. I said crust before, I meant bark. And with that, the modelers have been doing their own process that I am not an expert in the process, how they do it. There are some pictures I uploaded to our Twitter in which you can see like a geometry of a tree, and that's how they do it. They first draw like only the geometry, and then they start putting the pictures on it, and then they kind of model the 3D model and something like that. That's like kind of like the working process. I think we will launch a video the workflow that we're doing. But yeah, we've been with a lot of work lately, all and trying to I've told you we all in the team have other jobs, and this is like our side project that we all love, and we're trying to get it to be our main project, but it's not easy. But yeah, I think we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there eventually. And regarding music that we talked about, and yeah, I love that part of the project as well. I don't know if I can show it here. I don't know if I can stream a sound. I don't know how to do that. But the thing is, in order for the audience to just hear about it, is we take this device called Plants Play. It's 2 electrodes that can be in a plant, and when you put it in the plant, it starts receiving an electric signal. That electric signal.
And what's Ignacio? What's the name of that one again? I got served an ad. It's funny, after we talked a few weeks ago, I got served an ad about like an acoustic modeling. Listen to your plants or listen to your trees, and I'm wondering if that's Plants Play.
Plants Play, yeah. We researched
Plants Play. Okay.
That's an Italian device. There's another competition. I think American product. Remember the name of the American product? Maybe something like Green Play or something like that. I don't know. It was similar, but Plants is the Italian one, and that's the one that was available when we started doing this. And yeah, we bought it, and we started recording the frequencies of the trees and then turning it into music. Let me try to just let me try to
wow, it's amazing.
I don't know if I can. I don't know if you're hearing anything. Try to. What if I share here? Can you hear now, or? Does it hear, or this is the sound of a keole in a brass?
I hear like almost like a bird. It almost sounds like a bird, like a squeaking sound.
No, that might be. I don't know. I don't know if it's sharing the sound. The window and like, but I don't know if that's if that shares the sounds well. It's like brass. How you say, like winds, brass. That's like the sound in which
Oh,
we
cool.
recorded the frequencies. You can choose the scale, and you can choose the, how you say, the bell. No, the I don't know the exact name in English. In Spanish, is the timbre, when you like one type of sound. It's called timbre, but I don't know in English what's the actual name of it. Choose that in the app, so you can put guitar or violin, or you can put piano. And for the kale, the brass winds sounded pretty cool, um, because different frequencies do different like combination of sounds. So you need to do a setup for your um, plant. Like there are different setups for different plants. Like each plant sounds different, so you need to like tune what scale is better for which plant, and which sound is better for each plant. But I don't know if you can hear this. I just wanted to, yeah. I love that because like one of the ideas of development would be setting up like a permanent, like that you can put in the forest and plug in the trees, and then be streaming like live the music trees all the time. But that has implications, because it could be invasive for the forest. It's something that should be pristine and no human like interaction. So that would be awesome as a V perspective, and for the token holder, content creation, but might not be as good for the landowner, or for the actual forest, right? But if we can design a product that's very non-invasive, and can send that data, and does not interfere in the forest ecosystem, then so that's one of the things we are researching to do. And that mixed up with satellite imaging, I think that could be a very good MRV for each one of the trees. And it could also be content creation from the actual tree that can bring like further revenue to its protection. So that's pretty cool to. But yeah, that's the thing. We have some. Maybe it's not very implementable. I don't know. But yeah, that's the things we need to money in Gitcoin to develop. We have a lot of questions yet. It's still a very innovative project. And for now, not only donate to Gitcoin, you can also buy the NFTs we're producing. That's not only the NFTs of the trees, because as we have recognized, there are so few of these endangered trees that, if in order to build a wider and bigger NFT community, it will need a lot of work to that amount of endangered trees to be tokenized. So we are doing this art collaboration NFTs, so you can also be part of the NFT community, contribute to endangered tokens, and take advantage of the products we will be launching through these collections that are more quantity of tokens, so you can collaborate. Um, so those are the ways that you can be part of endangered tokens. And we are on the way. Like one of the things that we would love to achieve this year is to be more decentralized and become more like a DAO, because for now we haven't been able to decentralize the decision making, or yeah, most like that's the thing, right? DAO has this decentralized decision making, and that's something that we would love to achieve this year. maybe launch a fungible token that represents that voting power, or something like that, or contribution incentive, so anyone can contribute in the development of endangered tokens and get this token as a reward, and then you have more voting power, something like that. That's something that we would like to achieve this year.
Well, I love I love everything you're doing, but the museum, right? Like, have you gotten Momus yet? Has Momus ETH donated to you the $10,000?
No, I don't think he got has. I don't know if he knows about us, but
I you because like what you're doing is like, in the metaverse, right? Or in like these NFT galleries people are designing where you can go to a digital museum. I think Momus might actually have a digital museum. And so this would be a perfect project for Momus to I think they did $10,000 to Refi Spring. I don't know if you've seen
right.
that
I
big
saw that
donation. I'd have to
donation.
check
Yeah,
the ledger. Yeah. They did
that would
one
be a
for
dream.
us. Our very first round. So if Momus is watching, I'm gonna go lobby for Momus to donate to endangered tokens here. But the reason I'm saying it
Thank
is like the idea of a gallery of like walking through and seeing these what I call pieces of art, nature, right, as art, or
Right.
to be, as you said a long time ago, something to be experienced. Like you said, life is something to be experienced. And to me, the trees and nature and the sounds and the visualization of being able to look up, and it's hard to see in nature, like to see 20 of the KOA's trees. How long would that take you? Days to like travel around and see those 20 trees in person?
Well, if you are already here, that's just one morning. It's not that. Yeah, it's a nice trail to do in the morning. But you will be able. You need to have the permission of the landowner. You will need to know where it is. So we're actually trying to keep it down, because each person that goes into the forest is more impactful for the forest. So this is like a double impact project. You are able to bring funds to protect the forest, and at the same time you reduce the amount of people that needs to go into the forest in order to support it. And you can scale to, Chinese, I don't know, India and Chinese, with millions of people going into the forest without actually impacting in the forest. So that's the idea of this virtual tourism as well. And yeah, we are developing the virtual reality version of these trees and these showroom. And I think you get pretty well the idea of doing this, and why we doing this, and why, if someone from the metaverse, or like Momes, or um, maybe have the chance to talk with me, and I can show him what we're doing, maybe we can get more support in order to develop it, right? um, so that would be amazing. As we are with the, how you say, um, we have been moving a long way since we started. Like, we are so, it's like things have been happening, even if the team is not full time, things still have been happening in a way that it's almost feel like it's like destiny or something like that. I don't know, like the people we
Mm-hmm.
met, and the achievements we get with the really low financing we've gotten. It's pretty amazing. uh so that's what keep us going. It's like sometimes it's very, very tiring to be working in more than one thing at a time, because as I told you before, I'm a hydraulic engineer. I'm doing very cool projects in that regard hydrogeology, and helping communities with low water resources to access better water resources, government funded projects. And that's pretty cool. Like, I love what my day-to-day job as a hydraulic engineer. But this thing is more like a personal thing that I think it needs to be out there. Even if we can get it decentralized and other people then it's running it, I think endangered token be something public in the end. Like that's why we're in Gitcoin as well. It's public goods. I would to see endangered tokens as a public good in the future. That would be a dream. For now, if I do not put my own time every day to push for it to continue going, nothing happens, right? So I think Web3 give us the tool to do that, to discuss more. But we still have, I think, a long way to go for like for the tipping point. I think there will be a tipping point in which somehow endangered tokens will get an inertia that will be unstoppable, and that's what I'm trying to accomplish, to get to that tipping point. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, it does. Because it's I think with any organization, any group, it takes the founder's vision, right, and the hard work and the diligence and the consistency and the persistence to do it. But the idea being is that if you can get community support and incentivize the community, like then to keep it going, right, or to be something more than just Ignacio's project or Timo's project or John's project or Sage's project. Like, how do you actually get the snowball going, right? And collect more snow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Are you guys, just while we're chatting, it looks like you were whitelisted for charged particles. Are you still pursuing that?
I haven't looked into it. We're still whitelisted, I think, but yeah, I still don't understand it as well. Like how can we use it better, or how can we leverage from that whitelisting? I still don't understand it perfectly to leverage from it. That's the truth. Like, to be very truthful, I would love to say, yeah, man, we've been doing all these type of things, because that's an achievement we have in our past roadmap. Like we did the alliance, we had the meetings, and we got whitelisted. But now it's like, okay, what do we do now? I don't know. I don't know exactly what to do. Do you have more experience regarding that? I think you were doing. Remember that you were getting into it because each basin can hold other assets, and that's pretty cool.
Well, so like this, I'll drop it in the chat. So every species, I feel like there's really something there with, for us, for example, on the species or trees, I've been playing with just putting DAI or USDC in trees. As I pass a tree, I drop a pin on a map, and I mint a basin for that, and then put a little bit of money in there that earns yield in Aave. But the charged particle, can hold any ERC20 token. It doesn't have to be an Aave, yield bearing token. It can be any ERC20, and it can hold any NFT. So NFT, right, can represent documents, audio, data, access. So like I would see a use case of what you're doing, at least from Basin's perspective, or a collaboration somehow, where we can start to put audio recordings, right? If we mint a basin, like I minted a basin for a tree over here at my daughter's school, and it's got like $10 in it or something, earning yield. But I would love to get the audio recording, right? Or have you guys like pay endangered tokens to do I'll send you the video of it, and you guys do a digital representation of the tree,
right?
Or so, I'm just thinking out loud here. But then we put that inside the basin, which is a charged particle, and then it becomes a digital like footprint of that tree, and it has the sound of the tree, and it has money for the money's not actually going to the tree; it's going to the basin or the watershed that the tree is in. So, but it's like all that, those tokens, right, or those collectibles, those fingerprints, or digital footprints, or all the different names we call them, around that, and that's the beauty of the blockchain, because once you put it on there, it's been there, it's there.
Yeah.
So
I think I need to go to charge particles again, because the last time I checked, it was like I was whitelisted, but I couldn't enter the user interface by ourselves. But I had chance to implement API within our project or something like that, and we haven't had the development course to actually get into it, discover how to do it, and implement it in our website or something like that. So but the last time I checked, they told me that they were going to fix that, and our whitelist should be. So I need to check their user interface right now. Maybe there is now an easy way to interact with our whitelisted token. So, and that would be great, because we could put within each of the whitelisted trees their replicas of 3D models, their sound, as you say, and yeah, that could be pretty cool to start playing with it, and like get a lot more sense each token, so, and more value.
well, it's like yeah, because it like each tree, right, or each like each ints token
Yeah,
can all of a sudden have all this stuff associated with it. People can
right.
like a Klima love letter, or like a people can send messages to the tree, or like who know people can draw a picture. Like you'll like this, Ignacio, that my daughter, she asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and I said, look, like I want you to invest in some Basin tokens into their artists. So this, I don't know if you can see this, but this is
Yeah.
that's a beluga whale.
Oh, beluga. Okay, yeah.
Beluga whale that she drew, and this is a snow leopard
Snow leopard, right?
that she drew, and this is called
how
a
old is
Pallas
she?
cat. She's 14.
Oh, okay. She's good with
And
drawing.
so she uses Procreate. So she did.
Oh, right.
That's like a real mountain background, and then she drew it on her iPad.
Cool. Yeah.
But so I'm going to mint a Basin token, right, for each one of these animals, and we're going to upload these pictures to the snow leopard.basin into Pallas cat.basin. So it's like artwork that can go inside each token, and I would love like sound, right, in video clips. That's the beauty. That's why I asked about charged particles. I think there's a use case for what you're doing with your museum, or is that what you called it, a museum?
It could be. This is I call it like showroom, because this is only like
Showroom. Yeah, cool.
The modeler like gave me this showroom as proof of work, but it's not the finished product that we're developing. So I called it the showroom. But the finished product would be like for each one of the trees, you have one asset, and then the virtual tourism. So we're still in development, but this one showroom is pretty good, like proof of work in our development roadmap. So we can show something to our community, and also we can give feedback, because, for example, things in the showroom that can be improved is the size of the trees, the relative size of the trees. They're kind of small. Some of them are bigger than it should be. Not, most of them are smaller than it should be, regarding the scale at which you are looking at as a human being. So this kind of feedback we have already given them, and yeah, we're still working on it. So, but it could be like museum, like Ants Museum. That's pretty cool. I like it.
Well, cool. I love the project. I'm a big supporter of what you're doing. I feel like there's some collaboration we can do with Basin, and I appreciate you coming by to show off the showroom and the audio. Do me a favor, post some of the audio to Twitter and tag me in it so I can listen to it.
Okay, I'll do it.
And I'll share it.
Yeah, sure.
I'll share it with Momus.
Okay, yeah.
My goal now, right? My goal right now this afternoon is to get you $10,000 from Momus.
That's a nice goal, man. And always thankful and grateful for having met you online because we met in the refi environment, and I think you're great people. I mean person, I mean human being. I'm so sad that we were together at Denver last year, and we were like you were in the room, I was in the other room. I was actually, I wanted to meet you there, but we didn't like connect. But anyway, maybe we'll have another chance some other moment. But always
Are you
grateful
going? Are you going this year?
I applied as a speaker, and if I get as a speaker, I will go. But if I don't, yeah, I don't think we'll have the resources are too scarce to. It's pretty expensive for us to go there, and I think we will focus that resources on the building this year. But if I get to be a speaker, that I don't think so, but I still applied, and yeah, for that would definitely be an investment a little bit more worth of the money, because it will be more exposure to the project, and yeah, but not this year. We will be going to Rio, if like that's on March, like the end of March. That's a
Cool.
little bit closer, and yeah, I used to live in Rio de Janeiro as well, so I love going there as much as I can. I will take the chance to go there. So if you're planning to go to Rio, I totally recommend it. I love Rio de Janeiro. It's a nice place to have some sun and go to the beach, and also see a very good emerging Web3 city. Like Rio de Janeiro is doing some very good things regarding Web3 adoption and crypto adoption. They're pretty cool projects. There's this one called Play for Change, in which they take like Axie Infinity and another game Web3 games to the favelas, and they teach the kids to use Web3 through the games, and they have actually changed lives of kids that would have never got into that type of finance education, and now they're thinking about it. I should sell, I should buy, and that's pretty incredible, to do it through gaming, and like just social impact. Okay, so yeah, like that's the event we're planning, and of course I'm in the not administration or organization of Ethereum Chile. So we'll definitely, if you want to attend Ethereum Chile, I think we will be doing it around October. So maybe you can plan it out, and it's smaller event than it's Denver for sure, but still it's an opportunity to know the country as well, whatever. But yeah, not at Denver. We still don't know. Probably not.
Well, if you, I'm going to go down there. So if you're there, we're gonna meet this time.
Okay. Awesome. I will have it on my the on my mind, and definitely counts at something that will some point to go. Like for sure. The team will have to decide this time, though.
Well, great. We'll
So
keep up the good work. Yeah, keep grinding, keep doing it, and we'll get there at some point.
yeah, I know. Thank you, Timo, and thank you for this space. Love talking to you, man, and hope let's keep pumping Gitcoin, and all the Gitcoin projects are great. So let's keep supporting each other. I love that, and yeah, thank you for the space. Have a great